The sound of freedom ring. Good morning, Boston. Okay, my friends, I have never, ever done this, which is lead the show regarding a film. I mean, we've discussed films and movies. We do culture, obviously, on this show. But what I'm about to do now is unprecedented in the history of the Kuhner Report, and the reason is obvious. If you have seen the movie Sound of Freedom, you know exactly what I'm talking about. If you haven't, I cannot more strongly urge you, recommend that you go see this movie as soon as possible. It is a cultural watershed. There's no getting around it. It is the modern day version of Uncle Tom's Cabin. What you'll be seeing on the screen, if you haven't seen it, is art at its absolute best. It's more than a movie. It is an experience. And once you see this movie, you will be permanently changed by this movie, which, by the way, is the mark of great art. Take novels like Anna Karenina or, let's say, War and Peace by Tolstoy, or The Brothers Karamazov by Dostoevsky. In other words, there are certain works of art. George Orwell's 1984, you're never the same again. You're absolutely never the same again. You cannot see the world the same way as you walk out when you walk in. And that's the mark of great art, and it's in particular the mark of a great movie. Now, let me just say this, because there are so many angles to this. This is one of the greatest films I have ever seen. There's no question about it. It is a cinematic masterpiece. First of all, contrary to what many people think, it's not some boring, depressing documentary about what is really modern-day slavery. Child sex trafficking. That's what the movie really discusses. The sexual exploitation and trafficking of children. But it's not one of these documentaries, dark documentaries, where you're watching children being violated on the screen and you're almost looking away in horror. It's not that kind of a movie. It's actually, as I was telling both Mike and Sandy yesterday, because I saw it on Monday, it is actually one of the most entertaining films you will ever see. I cannot recommend it enough. It is, in essence, it is about a federal agent, Department of Homeland Security. It's based on a true story, based off the real person, Tim Ballard, who wants to try to rescue a brother and a sister who have been kidnapped and sold into modern-day child sex slavery. And can he save one? Can he save both? Can he save them? And it's about the anguish of the father who's looking to be reunited with his children. It's an incredible story. It is cutting edge. You'll be on the edge of your seat throughout the entire movie. Not one scene is wasted. Now, so as a movie, it is a highly entertaining piece of work. On top of that, the performance by Jim Caviezel is one of the greatest performances ever. I saw him in The Passion of the Christ. He obviously plays Jesus. He was phenomenal. In this one, he actually may have outdone himself. It is one of the master performances by an actor you will ever see on the screen. The emotions that he conveys through his eyes, through his face. And what is more remarkable about the movie, and this is why I want to lead with it, and I want to talk to all of you about this movie and see what you have to say. What the movie really does, and this is a modern-day Uncle Tom's Cabin, what Harriet Beecher Stowe did for slavery in the 19th century is what this movie now does for child sex slavery, child sex trafficking, which is the slavery of the 21st century. It really exposes it. It unmasks it. in the way that great art is supposed to do, through vivid, powerful, gripping, almost indelible storytelling. You will remember those kids that are portrayed on the screen for the rest of your life. There's a character in the movie, I'm going to discuss him a little bit later, based on a true, by the way, that's based on a true character, who helps the Jim Caviezel character in his search for these two kids. It's just, truth is stranger than fiction. And it's told in such a brilliant, powerful way. At the end of the movie, when I saw it, people got up and gave it a standing ovation. There were others in the front row that were sobbing, literally sobbing. I've never seen this in a movie. Of joy. I don't want to give away anything, but they're sobbing because they're happy at the way certain things turned out. It's one of these movies. I've been getting so many emails on this, so many text messages. Have you seen it, Jeff? I have seen it. It's the most incredible movie I've ever seen. I'm telling everybody I know to go see it. Now, what is incredible on many levels about this movie, as Jim Caviezel's character says, and this is the heart and soul of the movie, God's children are not for sale. Period. Why does this federal agent leave his family temporarily with the full blessing of his spouse, of his wife, who in real life, by the way, is the driving force behind Tim Ballard? She was the one in real life that said, you've got to rescue these kids. Period. Do what you got to do. This is what God is calling us to do. Why does he temporarily leave his family, go into the jungle, go into Central America, go into Latin America, put his own life on the line, eventually lose his job, lose his career? Because as he puts it, we are all children of God, especially the children. And they are not to be bought and paid and sold for the sexual pleasure of these sick, deviant pedophiles. And what the movie exposes, and this is why the left now is desperately trying to destroy this movie. I got to tell you, I've never seen anything like this. There is nothing more wholesome than this movie. By the way, there are no images of children being sexually exploited or molested. There is the powerful opening scene, which are true scenes, of children being abducted from the streets. And that's the most graphic it's going to get. And it's just, you just see kids being pulled, or, camera footage of kids being pulled into cars. And you're like, oh my God. And that is frequent. That happens all over the world. But what the movie shows is that there is a pedophile, in fact, a vast pedophile child molesting network here in the United States. That, in fact, the United States is one of the world's largest consumers of child pornography and, yes, of child sexual slavery. And that this is prevalent in Hollywood, it's prevalent in the government, it's prevalent among many wealthy Americans, it's all over our society. It's people who own grocery stores, people who own businesses, people who are professionals, that the appetite now for trafficking child sex slaves is insatiable, and it is growing and growing and growing. As the movie rightly points out, it is the fastest international criminal network in the world. It's growing faster than guns. It's even growing faster than drugs. And yet, when a movie delivers such a simple, powerful message as this, you would think that the left would agree with the right on this. That at least when it comes to the trafficking and selling of children, the exploitation of children, at least on this, we could have some consensus. No. This movie has now become public enemy number one. The Rolling Stone magazine has now attacked it. The Washington Post has attacked it. The Guardian in Britain has attacked it. The liberal corporate media is vilifying this movie. In other words, they are defending pedophilia. This is what liberalism has now come down to. They are defending or deliberately trying to turn a blind eye. They are afraid to confront child sex trafficking and how prevalent it has become in our society. After you see this movie, you will never be the same again. I want to ask you, have you seen the movie, and why are liberals opposed to the movie?
So you quit your job and you go and rescue those kids.
That's the trailer from the blockbuster. I mean, it's a smash, an absolute box office smash. It has stunned critics all over the world. They cannot believe this movie, A, was made, and B, is doing so well. That's Sound of Freedom. It's 6:20 here on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's bulldozer. And so what we now have is a movie that has defied all expectations. In fact, it now has pretty much knocked off Indiana Jones, The Dial of Destiny, and per screens, it's doing better. Now, they're deliberately trying to limit the viewership for this movie by 2,000 screens. It's been shown on 2,000 fewer screens than Indiana Jones and The Dial of Destiny, and yet it just hit over $40 million in the first week of its release. Most of it word of mouth. Just people telling other people, you have to go see this movie. And what I want to ask all of you is, have you seen the movie? Did you find it as powerful, as gripping, as riveting, in many ways as life-changing as I did? And why do you think liberals despise and revile this movie? To me, this is one of the big stories of our time. Here is a movie against child sex trafficking, against child slavery, and they are trashing this movie. And they're trashing it not for the quality of the movie, because the movie is incredibly entertaining. And as I said this to Grace, look, here it is. I'll lay it all out for you. If this movie does not win Best Picture, Best Actor, Best Director, Best Screenplay, then Hollywood is full of pedophiles. I'm telling you, case closed. Only if you're a pedophile or you are sympathetic to sexualizing or grooming children can you possibly revile and hate this movie. Because simply as a movie, it is a remarkable piece of art. So why would you be against this movie? Well, they're coming out why now. Liberal media outlets attacking this movie, saying this is pushing a conspiracy theory, when the movie is literally based on facts. In fact, on real stories by a real person that really happens. What? There's no child sex trafficking now? No, it doesn't exist. No. There's no child sex slavery? No, that doesn't exist. So why? Why would liberals be so opposed to this movie? And I think the answer speaks for itself. Because many of them are either pedophiles themselves, or they know exactly where much of the rainbow mafia agenda, the LGBTQ plus agenda leads to. The transgender agenda, the transsexual agenda, there's no question about it. The sexualization and grooming of our children leads to pedophilia. And that's what this movie exposes. The prevalence of child pornography and how now many, many Americans in the business world, in government, in Hollywood, everywhere, now have almost a limitless appetite to sexually exploit and dominate children. And so they're showing a side of our society that everybody wants to pretend doesn't exist. And that's why now either you're seeing two responses. Either they're deliberately trying to ignore the movie and pretend it's not there and it's not doing as well as it is, or, in other words, a blind eye, or they are vilifying it. I mean, they are excoriating it, giving it links and connotations that are simply not there. Frankly, it's disgusting. As Jim Caviezel's been saying again and again, this is about the children. This is about modern day. By the way, there are now more slaves today in the world than there ever has been throughout human history. There are now more slaves today than at the height of the transatlantic slave trade. That's why child sex trafficking is such a key major issue. And with Biden opening the southern border, 85,000 children, unaccompanied minors, as they're called, have been trafficked into the United States, and they have disappeared. They're gone. They're gone. Many of them sold for child pornography, which means the children are enslaved, and others sold literally to be molested and exploited. And nobody wants to confront this. And let me just say one final point, and then I want to really open it up to you, the great audience of Kuhner Country, so you can tell me if you've seen the movie, what do you think of the movie, what do you make of the criticisms from the left about the movie. Look, as the Germans say, let's put our cards on the table. We have a president of the United States who, according to his own daughter, Ashley Biden, who wrote in her own private diary that was discovered, that he forced her to take inappropriate showers with her, Ashley Biden, when she was 11 and 12 years old. We have suspected and accused molester as president of the United States. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay. As Jim Caviezel has now revealed, Hollywood did everything in its power to try to prevent this movie from being made. Government agencies did everything in their power to try to prevent this movie from being made. And now liberal media outlets are either trying to bury this movie by ignoring it or trashing it. So my question to you, very simple. Have you seen Sound of Freedom? What did you make of the movie? Did you find it as powerful and gripping and riveting as I did? And why? Why are liberals so opposed to this film? What is it about child pornography and child sex trafficking that they can't seem to want to be able to criticize or condemn? 617-266-6868. Lines are on fire. Let's go to Sharon in Marshfield. You're going to kick it off for us, Sharon. Thanks for holding and welcome.
Thanks for taking my call. My husband and I saw the movie Saturday. It was the most profound movie I've probably seen in my life. 20 minutes into the movie, I said to my husband, I think I'm going to be sick. I had such a stomach ache watching it, but it was riveting that it was just so well made and beautifully done in the story that was told that you could not sit there and watch it. A couple that was sitting to my left, the woman sat forward in her chair the majority of the movie with her elbows on her knees and her face in her hand, like almost praying. The majority of the movie just sat like that watching the movie. It was unbelievable and such a powerful story to be told, but also it just made you sick to your stomach.
Sharon, was there any scene in particular that really stood out for you? Because for me, there's two scenes in particular. But I'm just curious. Maybe it's just me. Is there anything where you go, wow, like that you thought was the most powerful, gripping scene of the movie?
There's the actual footage of, like from cameras, from 2011, where you're seeing little babies and kids getting taken
abducted off the streets. Yeah, the opening. Yeah, the opening. Yeah, the opening shots of the movie.
Being, the little boy and the little girl that were the main characters, what they went through, and the little girl being in a room and the pedophiles coming in. It just you hear about these incidents here and there in the news, but to actually visually see it, and you just think these poor children, and thank God for this man for helping them.
I'm with you, Sharon. I mean, honestly, it was scene after scene after scene after scene. And what the movie portrays deliberately is it's everywhere. It's not just in the United States. It's in Mexico. It's in Honduras. It's in Colombia. That this is truly a global phenomenon. It's affecting every area of the globe. And it's big money. It's huge money. And, there's so many good scenes, but, one of them is when Jim Caviezel, the character, he plays, Tim Ballard, and says, you buy someone cocaine or whatever, well, they snort it. That's it. It's done. Whatever. You buy a gun, fine, you have a gun, but you use it for yourself. But if you buy a child, you can sell that child 5, 6, 10 times a day for 10 years. So the profit off of a child, it's like slavery. Well, it is slavery. The profit off of a child, especially if you sell it into prostitution or child porn or whatever, you can just keep making more money and more money. The return is just immense until, of course, you eventually destroy the child. I got to tell you, that scene where he describes this, you're like, we are now in a sick, sick world. I mean, this is beyond sick. Sharon, why are so many liberals so opposed to this movie? Why do they hate this movie so much? What is it about it? It wasn't even a political movie. I mean, Sharon, am I wrong?
Their way to deflect on what the real problem is, whether it's, the politicians, political, the elections. Let's give you something else to talk about to divert you away from that. Jeff, didn't you see the similarity when they were setting up the sting operation, that they picked an island and that these people were going to come to the island? I said to my husband, I go, that's Jeffrey Epstein.
Oh, that's Jeffrey Epstein. Oh, you read my mind. That's exactly what I told Grace. I said, bingo, that's Epstein Island. That's what Epstein was doing. And, Bill Clinton went to that. I mean, it's a who's who of the elites that visited Epstein Island. And we know what Epstein did on that island. And by the way, the woman that used to be whatever, some kind of a fashion model or whatever, a beauty queen. And she's the one that lures the kids. I was thinking that's Ghislaine Maxwell. So you get kind of a respectable woman, and she serves as the front person. And then everybody thinks, well, I mean, it's a woman. A woman would never abduct a child. And she's the one that lures them in, and they're off to the island. I was thinking Ghislaine Maxwell, Jeffrey Epstein.
My husband and I said when we were watching the movie, and you're saying why the liberals, why politicians, all the executives trying to stop this movie. Well, remember his who's on who went to his island besides Bill Clinton. There's a lot of celebrities. Didn't Oprah Winfrey go there? Didn't other big-time celebrities go there?
When you said who's who, you're completely right. Billionaires went there. Hollywood moguls went there. Hollywood celebrities went there. leading politicians, presidents went there multiple times. Those were underage kids, all of them. And, no one has ever answered to this day, how did Epstein make his money? And we now know. He blackmailed them. He brought him to that island, put him in the room with those kids, had the cameras running, and then would turn around and say, ooh, I think about $100 million. We'll keep this out of the media. And that's how he made his fortune, by blackmailing people. By the way, many people in the media, many media personalities went to Epstein Island. Many media personalities hung out with Epstein even after Epstein was convicted for wanting to have sex with a minor. George Stephanopoulos went to one of his big parties. You can run down the whole list. Leading news personalities at ABC, CBS, NBC, CNN, all of them, they were partying at Epstein's mansion after he was convicted of wanting to have sex with a minor and had to, do some kind of a half-house prison sentence. Halfway house prison sentence. So, no, that's why they don't want this movie made, because it exposes them.
Yeah, it's sickening what they try to change people's minds or poison them. And the sad thing is, you're saying that people are going to believe the Washington Post and other news outlets condemning this movie. And I just find that extremely sad that you don't have a thought of your own to, if somebody's telling you this is wrong, don't go see this, that makes me want to go see it even more. To make
Amen.
My own opinion, let me watch it. Don't tell me what is right and what is wrong and what I can see and what I cannot see. It makes me want to go see something even more. And everybody should go out and see this movie. It'll change your thought. It change my perspective.
Amen. Sharon, thank you very, very much for that call. Really, amen. I'm urging everybody, please go see the movie. Go see the movie. If you've seen the movie, tell family, friends, colleagues. No one that I know who's gone to, and I know a lot of people now, has come back and said, I didn't like it. Or I wish I hadn't seen it. Or in fact, it's the opposite. They come back saying, I love this movie. Incredible, life-changing movie. It uplifts you. I'm telling you, it uplifts you. This is going to launch the modern day abolitionist movement. What we are now witnessing, and because of Kuhner country and shows like this, we are now we are launching the modern day abolitionist movement to free children from slavery. 617-266-6868. Okay, Sound of Freedom is rocking it at the box office. It is now stunning, shocking expectations. It has now cracked over $40 million. It was number 3 at the box office. And if you look at the on-screen average, because it's on many fewer screens than Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, it's basically knocked off Indiana Jones. So the movie now has Hollywood on its heels. They don't know what to do with this movie. They're trying to suppress it. They didn't want it to be made. It has been made. It was made, in fact, years ago. It was an ordeal, almost a miracle that it was finally produced and now available on the screens. Have you seen it? What do you make of the movie? Did you love it as much as I did? And I've got to ask you, why are liberals so opposed? Why do they hate Sound of Freedom so much? What does it say about them and what liberalism has now come to? 617-266-6868. Lines are jammed. Dave in the great state of Pennsylvania. Thanks for holding, Dave, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff. How are you, sir? I hope your father's doing well. You're in my prayers.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dave.
Good, good. As you let me do last week, I went with my beautiful new bride-to-be to see the movie. And Tim Ballard is an incredible man, but my favorite part, Jeff, of the movie, the most intriguing was when he sits down with the gentleman and says, God's children are not for sale. And that give me goosebumps, because that really edified the movie right there. And the other scene, I think, Jeff, you know what? I think it was the post-credit scene, too, when Jim Caviezel came out and gave that 2 to 3 minute piece. I think it's a part of the trailer as well, where he talks about that, it's not about him. It's not about even Tim Ballard. It's about, bringing this to light with people who don't know about it. Obviously, the liberal media is not going to cover it, because they're in favor of all this stuff, And I think Jim Caviezel and Tim Ballard are great men. I mean, Caviezel, from what I heard, he didn't make a cent off the movie, Jeff.
Oh no, he's a very devout Christian. He's a wonderful man. He really is. Yes. He's a wonderful, noble man. He's a modern day hero. There's very few it's really rare you can say that about an actor. But he's a modern day hero. Tim Ballard is a modern day hero, and I'm with you. To me, the most there's so many powerful scenes, but for me anyway, the most powerful scene, that's the scene where he's talking to this guy who used to work for the Colombian drug cartel, and he went to prison, and he started to party again and go back to his old lifestyle, and it's very powerful. And he says, I went to pick up a prostitute, and I thought she was 20, 25 years old, and then after I slept with her, I realized, oh my God, she's a girl. She's 14. And he describes the darkness that he saw in her eyes, and that she had been doing this since she was 6 years old. And then he says, I realized I am the darkness. People like me who sleep with these young girls, these prostitutes. And she was been used as a prostitute for so long. I thought she was 20, 25. She's only a 14-year-old girl. And he says, that's when I took my gun and I wanted to put it in my mouth or hold it to my head, forgive me. And then God said something to me. And he said, when God tells you to do something, you do it. And by the way, that's a true character. That really happened. That's not our artistic license. And basically it was God. I guess he had a vision or something where God said to him, no, you're going to use the money that you made from your years at working with the Colombian drug cartel, and you're going to buy these children their freedom. And apparently, according to Tim Ballard, he's the guy that broke everything wide open. Not only was he buying these kids for their freedom, not to enslave them, but to free them, but he taught them the lingo, how to dress, how to act, how to look like someone who'd be interested in getting involved in this pedophile network. And that he was the indispensable player in all this. So, I mean, that was an incredible scene. Just an incredible scene. And then he says, I know why I'm doing it. Why are you doing it? And that's when Caviezel says, because God's children are not for sale. It's maybe the most powerful scene of any movie I have ever seen in my life. Now, again, Dave, if this doesn't win Academy Awards across the board, Best Actor, Best Supporting Actor, Best Screenplay, Best Movie, Best Director, I'm telling you, then Hollywood is full of pedophiles. That's it. Case closed. Because I've never seen a movie like this. Ever. So we'll see what happens. I doubt it. They won't even touch it with a 10-foot pole. But, Dave, I'm with you. That scene, I'll never forget that scene. That scene will stay in my mind till the day I die. Dave, were you surprised how entertaining the movie was?
It was. Jeff, one more point. I want to give a shout out to Angel Productions. That's the company that footed the bill for this. And yes. They got a website, angel.com/freedom. And you can go there, and it explains about the movie, how people can purchase tickets for other people who can't go or can't afford to see the movie. Caviezel says that in the post-credit scene too, Jeff. And they do have a store on there where you can buy memorabilia from the store too, like the necklace that the little boy gave Tim Ballard in the movie, the little boy, and then he hugged him. There's stuff you can buy. You can buy those rubber band bracelet things that says whatever inscribed from the movie. It's really nice, and I think I'm going to go on there and buy a couple of trinkets to support their movement. But it was a great movie, and Jeff, I'm going to tell you, this outdid, within the first 3 or 4 days, it outdid the Indiana Jones movie. I think they made like $30 million the first few days, and then over the weekend, that's when it hit the $40 million, Jeff.
Let's keep it going. Let's keep it going, Dave. Dave, thank you very much for that call. I hope all of you, if you haven't seen it, I'm telling you, you will thank me. You will thank me. Go see this movie. Tell your friends, family members, everybody you know. This movie will change your life for the better. 617-266-6868 is the number. Shelley in Randolph. Thanks for holding, Shelley, and welcome.
Thank you for taking my call.
My pleasure.
I've seen the movie twice. I saw it the first night, and then I went again last night to see what I missed because I was just so upset with seeing it the first time. I loved it the second time. Still on. I loved it. It was just. What bothers me is that my Catholic friends don't even know about it. Protestants seem to know. Their churches buy out tickets and they go. Catholics don't seem to know. I wanted my priest to just to mention from the altar afterwards, after church, about the movie, and they wouldn't do it. So it's my job, I think, to let my friends know. I've been to see it twice. I will probably go with my friends to see it again. It was a wonderful movie, but I also thought God was remarkable. He sent the rain July 4th, and that sent everybody to the movies, and it was sold out. I couldn't get to see it till like 7 o'clock because it was sold out. Last night, it was still sold out when I went to see it last night. And people were crying. People wanted to clap at the end. They didn't know what to do. They loved it. They loved it. So it's our job, like you're doing, to spread the word that people should see this movie.
Shelley, I'm just curious. When you saw it the second time, did you enjoy it as much as because that's the mark of a great movie. I had a former colleague at the Washington Times. He was a film critic, and actually a really good film critic. And I said, hey, among you film critic types, you artsy types, what's the rule of thumb? What is really a great movie? And he said, honestly, the mark of a great movie is if you see it a second time or a third time, even a fourth time, you enjoy it just as much as the first time. Then that really shows to you it is a great movie. Did you enjoy it as much the second time as the first time?
The music, things you miss in the beginning, I enjoyed it more the second time, really. I enjoyed it more. And everything hits you that you didn't get the first time. Especially the music at the end is almost like angels singing. Do you realize that almost 20 years ago, The Passion of the Christ came out with Jim Caviezel? Almost 20 years ago. And here he is again with another movie that I think that God sent this movie for to wake us up.
No, Shelley, Shelley, really, as I said in my opening monologue, and I just want to repeat it. Jim Caviezel is 1,000% correct. This is what we saw on the screen is the 21st century version of Harriet Beecher Stowe's Uncle Tom's Cabin. And I used to lecture on that. It's a remarkable novel. And I would lecture on it when I was a professor of American history. I go, after that book was published, it lit a fire. It's hard to explain. It lit a fire in the minds of men and women across the entire country. In fact, across the entire world. And the abolitionist movement arose from other things, but it really propelled the abolitionist movement. And it gave them an intensity, a moral foundation, a determination, an energy, a power that made it almost unstoppable. That's what this movie does. You can feel it. And what you're seeing now is really now the birth or the rebirth of the abolitionist movement. And the elites don't know what to do. They just don't know what to do. Because this movie is so powerful. It's got so much truth in it, so much righteousness that you cannot disagree with this movie. You just can't, unless you're a moral monster, an absolute evil, satanic monster. And they did it. I mean, they did it. And we did it for going to see it. And let's just keep this baby going. Let's get it to 100 million. After a while, if it makes so much money, Hollywood is going to be forced to recognize it. And then they're going to clean up at the Academy Awards. I mean, this is one of these works this will really go down in history as a watershed movie. Very few movies are. This is one of them. Shelley, thank you so much for that call. I really appreciate it. 617-266-6868. Have you seen it? Do you agree with the Kuhner man? Do you disagree with the Kuhner man? Did you love it? Did you find it as engaging and moving as I did? 617-266-6868 is the number. Justin in Weymouth. Thanks for holding, Justin, and welcome. Hello, Justin.
Jeff, can you hear me?
I can hear you, Justin. Can you hear me?
Yes, Jeff. Jeff, I did not see the movie, but I want to tell you something. I was on social media last night, and AMC Theaters is trying to prevent people from seeing the movie. They're putting on their app that it's sold out, and people are going to the movie, and there's only 4 or 5 people in the movie theater. And they were saying, hey, when I went to buy the tickets, almost all the tickets looked like they were sold out. Why are there only 4 or 5 people in this theater? And the other thing, Jeff, is when people are showing up to get the ticket, they're being told the air conditioning in that theater is broken.
Oh, I've heard that. Yeah. The second one I've heard, Justin. I mean, I'm not disputing your first point. I'm just saying that on this, I've been reading about that. People have been emailing me stories that the air conditioning, and it's hot and humid, that the AC is out. They don't want people to go in. They want people to leave. They want them to be uncomfortable. Now, I'm just curious, Justin, back to your first point. When someone has complained to the manager of the theater and said, hey, you say it's sold out. There's only 4 or 5 of us in here. What have they said? What's their response?
You know what? I did not see anyone say that. I don't know. But I do want to say someone said they did some research, and the guy who owns AMC has something to do with the Clintons. I don't know if that's true.
Well, there you go. Yeah, well, no, but there you go. It's political. That's what's amazing. Justin, I got to tell you, I guess Grace is right. She always says I'm a naive. I guess my naivete is showing again, Justin. I honestly...
Can I ask, like I said, I haven't seen it. Was there a Christian aspect to it? Because that could be it, because the left hates God.
Is there a Christian aspect to it? No, I can't really say that.
Yeah.
No,
well, how
do I say? Look, he does say that, God's children are not for sale. And in another scene, he confronts a pedophile, the Caviezel, the Tim Ballard character, the Jim Caviezel character, forgive me, he's playing Tim Ballard, he arrests a pedophile who's downloading child pornography in California. And he recites a biblical verse from Matthew about if you molest children, it is better to have a millstone put around your neck and for you to, be plunged into the depths of the sea. So there's one biblical verse that's cited and that line about they're all God's children. But, that's it. That's it. Justin, the cast, to show you what kind of a movie this is, the cast is a Latin American all-star cast. These are some of the most prominent, well-known, best actors from Central and South America who went out of their way to say, we'll even do it for free. But this issue is so big and so important and so prevalent that we want to have a role in this movie. And Mira Sorvino, by the way, is an Academy Award winner. So it's, so No, I mean, many of these actors are not Christians themselves, or whatever. They're not, public about it. No, there's something, Justin, going on in our culture. And I think what it is there is now this push to sexualize children. And this exposes the dark underbelly, not just of Hollywood, but of our elites and really of American society. And they don't want it. They don't want it. And Justin, like I said in the opening hour, let's all be honest. The President of the United States, Joe Biden, in his daughter's own personal diary, she says that he forced her to take inappropriate showers when she was 11, 12 years old, and that it destroyed her and messed her up for the rest of her life. So we have an accused child molester in the White House. Hunter Biden. There was child porn found on his laptop. There were images of a family member who was a minor in a bikini in a very sexually provocative way, suntanning right next to Hunter. So just look at Joe Biden, look at Hunter Biden, and look at the first family. That's what the Democrats have become. That's what liberals have become. That's why they hate this movie, Justin.
Sure.
I'm sorry, Justin, could you repeat that?
God bless you, Jeff. You're doing the Lord's work.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Justin. God bless you, my friend. I appreciate it. Well, look at Epstein Island. Look at Jeffrey Epstein. Look at Epstein Island. One of his biggest customers was Bill Clinton. Like, what are we talking? And Hillary Clinton knew. What did he take, 14 trips? I think Bubba took literally 14 trips to Epstein Island. Hillary Clinton knew. She knew what her husband was doing on that island. Believe me, he wasn't taking in the sun. Okay, let's just put it that way. 617-266-6868. Larry in Leominster. Thanks for holding, Larry, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff. Normally I try to start off with a joke. The only joke I got from this is, as a 53-year-old man, it excites me beyond belief that I can make it through an entire movie at a theater without having to leave to go to the bathroom. That's my life
Larry,
in a nutshell. Buddy.
Larry, I swear, I wish you hadn't said that. No, I'll tell you why. Because since we're going there, I swear to you, the last couple of years, I'm like, I can't. What is it with me? I've got to go at least once. This movie, I swear to you, was the only movie in years. I didn't leave my seat. I was just like so on the edge. I'm like, oh my God, I actually went through 2 hours or whatever it was, and I didn't have to go. This is a miracle.
Exactly.
Larry, did you see the movie, and what did you make of the movie?
I think I mentioned it to you last week that I went opening day, July 4th, and went and saw it. I like that woman's reaction where she said she was like 20 minutes in and she was feeling sick. I didn't feel that, but there are parts of that movie that's very uncomfortable as you're sitting there. You're going, oh, because you know what's going to, it's all implied. Like you said, you don't see anyone really getting touched or, inappropriately, any of the kids, but you know what's coming. Right. So you get that, you need to have that visceral reaction. And Mike was asking me, is it worth going in to see in the theater? I said, have you ever gone to see a movie where there's like-minded individuals in the movie theater and you all feed off each other, the pain of the children and this and that, so I think he got that. You're asking about, why is Hollywood pushing against it so hard? Last year, or maybe almost 2 years ago now, what was the big movie that they were defending and pushing so hard?
Was it Cuties?
Exactly, the pedophile movie. If that didn't wake people up to think that Hollywood is full of pedophiles, this opposition should. Here's another thing that I don't know if you touched on or thought about. Do you remember in this movie the code in South America for children for sale?
No, what's the code? What was the code?
Do you remember they called them chickens?
Oh, yeah. That's right. Yes.
What does that sound like, Jeff? Pizza, hot dogs, hamburgers at 2 o'clock in the morning at the White House a couple of administrations ago. It's touching nerves that they don't want to touch. And that's what scares them, right? It wasn't just the Clintons involved in pedophilia. It was Podestas. It was the Obamas. It is the Bidens. Why do you think every turn these sick individuals keep trying to tie Trump to Epstein because of one picture where they got their arms around each other?
Larry, as always, absolutely great point.
These films are created out of moral panics. They're created out of bogus statistics. They're created out of fear.
That, of course, is a critic, Mike Rothschild. He's supposedly an author who exposes quote-unquote conspiracies. He was on This Is CNN, blasting the movie Sound of Freedom. And I've been urging everybody. I saw it a couple days ago. One of the best, if not the best movie I have absolutely ever seen. Now, this is what I'm talking about. This is the garbage now, the dreck that liberal media outlets are using to trash and discredit this incredible film. First of all, what's the conspiracy theory? What are the bogus statistics? What? There isn't child sex trafficking? No, that doesn't exist? No? That's what, a figment of everyone's imagination? No? Children aren't trafficked all over the world? No? Child pornography doesn't exist? No? So everybody's lying? The images don't exist? They're not real? All those children they're making it up? That they were sold into slavery? No, it's all fake. This is now what they've been reduced to. Now, the reason is why. Why would you blatantly lie about a film like this? And by the way, the movie is not talking. It never mentions once a Democrat politician or a Republican politician or a politician in Washington. It's about two Honduran kids who have been sold into slavery, and the job of a federal agent who is desperately trying to track them down and save them, and gets into the underbelly, the vast network of pedophilia that exists all over the world. And the point that the movie makes is that much of the world produces the supply in this slavery operation, i.e. the children. But we in the United States and other countries, not just us, we produce the demand. We produce the demand. We have an insatiable appetite and demand for child porn, which is a fact, for child exploitation and child prostitution, which is a fact, and for child trafficking and child sex, which is a fact. And by the way, as the movie points out at the end, and this is also a fact, the United States is one of the largest consumers of child sex. It's a fact. So where's the conspiracy theory? So now, if you're opposed to child slavery and the molestation and enslavement of children, then what? I mean, think how sick these people are. You're a right-wing extremist if you oppose the sexual exploitation of children. If this is liberalism, it's finished. But I'm just telling you right now, if this is now what liberalism has come to, it's over. It's failed. It's done. It's over. No, I'll tell you what the real problem is. They're trying to sexualize and groom our children in school. They're trying to do it in public schools. They're trying to do it through Drag Queen Story Hour. They're trying to do it through the transgender movement. They're trying to do it through transsexual movement. That's what this is all about. And so the fact now that the consequences of this worldview, the consequences of the radical left agenda, The fact that the Democratic Party, let's be honest, is full of sexual deviants. From Biden and his family, to the Clintons, to the Obamas, to the Kennedys. I can run down the whole list. That's what makes them now. Whoa, we're getting too on. Whoa, we can't have the truth come out now, can we? We can't raise awareness on this issue. And this is now the irony of history. The Democrats were the party of slavery in the 19th century. In fact, they broke our country up and launched a civil war over this issue. Now, in the 21st century, they are the party of slavery again. Child slavery, child sex trafficking. It is the modern slavery of our time. And like the old abolitionists, you, me, all of us in Kuhner country, we stand on the vanguard of ending this abomination of child trafficking and of modern day slavery. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, this is the Kuhner country poll question of the day, sponsored by Kelly Financial Services. Do you think the movie Sound of Freedom, do you think it is, one, an expose of child sex trafficking? Or do you think, two, it is a conspiracy propaganda? What do you think the movie Sound of Freedom is? Is it, to me, a brilliant, powerful expose, but is it an expose of child sex trafficking, or two, or B, conspiracy propaganda? That's what the left and liberals are now unbelievably claiming. But I want to hear from you. You can vote on our webpage, wrko.com/Kuhner, wrko.com/Kuhner, Kuhn as in Nancy ER. If you want to vote via Twitter, our handle there, at the Kuhner Report, all one word, Kuhn as in Nancy ER, at the Kuhner Report. Okay, lines are blazing. The text line is going to burn up. You can text us 70470, 70470. This is from 781. Jeff, child sex trafficking is a humanitarian issue, not a political issue. And yet the leftists are coming out against the movie Sound of Freedom, which exposes the children being trafficked, is very telling. The lucrative multi-billion-dollar business is why the Biden administration has our borders wide open. I support Trump for his many policies that has helped all Americans. But what he did to take down sex trafficking is why he will always have my support. That is one of the greatest achievements of the Trump presidency, which was undone by Biden. And now, as you know, under the Biden administration, we have a wide open border, which is a huge gift. In fact, we're aiding and abetting the drug cartels and these modern day slaveholders and those involved in the slave trade, human trafficking. And in the United States alone, 85,000 children, 85,000 unaccompanied minors, as they're called, have now disappeared. They're gone. They're gone. Even the Department of Homeland Security admits many have been sold. They're being sold for child pornography. They're being sold to be molested. They're being sold to work in sweatshops. They're being sold to pimps so they can be used as prostitutes on the streets. This is the reality of Biden's America. And that's why they don't want to talk about modern day slavery and about modern day child sex trafficking. Because like the old Democrats of the 19th century, they're in the slavery business. They just call it open borders. But it's the same evil, just repeated in a different way, in a different form, but for the 21st century. And like the old abolitionists, we are the ones who stand in their way. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, one email, and then I'm going to go right back to the phone lines. Jeff, I learned yesterday that in May, during the run-up to the release of the movie Sound of Freedom, Biden's Department of Justice, under the leadership of Merrick Garland. Now, think about this, okay? What I'm about to say. What does this say about Garland and about Biden? Listen to this. Removed from its .gov website dedicated to addressing child sex trafficking 3 critical sections: international sex trafficking of children, domestic sex trafficking of minors, and child victims of prostitution. They also removed all mention of minors from their January 2022 National Strategy to Combat Human Trafficking documents. With tens of thousands of children who have come illegally across the border, that the Biden administration has now admitted they've lost track of. And in addition, the federal government being accused of actually aiding in the human smuggling process. Why do you suppose they did this? Because our own government is now complicit. That's the dirty secret. That's why there's a panic on the left. That's why once you see this movie, again, it's like Uncle Tom's Cabin. Once you read about the plight of the slaves and what it was like to pick cotton off a plantation and what it was day after day after day, the sheer evil nature, the brutality of slavery, you couldn't look at the issue the same way again. And that's why that novel, that book had such a powerful effect in its time. You see this movie, you're changed forever. I mean, just on so many dimensions, not just political, moral, cultural, social, philosophical. You're just profoundly altered. You right away, you say, we must close that border. The border must be secured. We must go after these human traffickers. We have to go after these cartels. We've got to cut off the demand. We've got to cut off the supply. This regime of open borders is enabling the greatest evil imaginable, slavery. You see a movie like this, you will never see the world the same way again. 617-266-6868. Agree, disagree. Have you seen Sound of Freedom? And did it move you the way it moved me? CK in the great state of Georgia. Thanks for holding, CK, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff. First time, long time.
Welcome, CK. Welcome.
Good morning, Jeff. First time, long time. This is a topic that I have my 13-year-old here driving with me, but she's mature enough to handle it because she knows what her daddy does for work. The 85,000, Jeff, I believe that number is way on the low end. One thing Trump used to do that this administration doesn't do is DNA the children when they were coming to the border. So now you say 85,000. Without DNA in these families that are coming up to the border, how do you know that those are their children? The only way you know, and the cartels knew not to even dare do it, was by DNA in these adults with these children, and it deterred the smuggling of children by, I don't even know the number, but by a lot. So the web tangles even more when these children are coming into the country and they end up in these trailer parks and they're victimized and they don't have a way out. then DCF, which is what we call it in Massachusetts, gets involved. And they don't know who to contact. Now the DNA is not coming back. They don't know who these people are. And these children are trapped. And it's a sensitive topic. I have my daughter here listening. And it's just something that I vote number one on your poll question, because a lot of people, even on the left, are waking up and seeing. But then again, you have those calling it conspiracy theory. And I just wanted to let that out there because, you and I go way back. And I'm finally calling because this is something that hits home.
CK, I got to tell you, as a father myself, and I have a 13-year-old. He's a boy. He's not a girl, unlike your daughter. But I thought of him. I thought of Ava. This could be our children. And this is the point that Jim Caviezel makes in the movie. He goes, don't turn a blind eye. Don't think, because this could happen to your child one day, or your grandchild, or your nephew, or your niece. And we've got to stop this. For all of our sakes, we have to stop this. And I'm with you, CK. Look, Trump did many, many great things. And one of them was he wanted to make sure, if you're a child, that you're with your parents. And they're going to test your DNA. Biden got rid of that. So, look, you talk about people on the left changing. RFK Jr. admitted, he goes, I just spent a couple hours on the border, just a couple of hours. And I looked at this and I'm like, this is insane. He was counting the number of countries people are coming from. And he goes, then I began to see their children in packs. Why are they bringing in children in packs? They're enslaving and trading in children. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, the movie Sound of Freedom. It is doing phenomenally well at the box office, to the utter horror and astonishment of Hollywood and the entire liberal establishment. So, believe it or not, the corporate media has made it their mission. Liberals have made it their mission to now vilify, attack, and openly lie about the movie. It's incredible. So, they're afraid now of a movie that talks about child sexual slavery and child sex trafficking. Okay, this is from 617. Jeff, the media trashed and continues to trash Sound of Freedom, yet it praised the movie Cuties. That's all you need to know about the media and their agenda. Bingo. For those of you that don't know, Cuties was a movie released several years ago to critical acclaim. The Washington Post, the New York Times, Rolling Stone, CNN, unlike this movie, Sound of Freedom, they loved Cuties. Now, I never saw it. I heard about it. I read about it. It's a disgusting film. In a nutshell, it's about an 11-year-old girl who rebels against her conservative family and starts to do dancing, but these are 11-year-old kids dressed in extremely sexually provocative ways and who dance in very sexually provocative ways. It's essentially a pro-pedophilia film. You want to talk about the sexualization of our children? This film is all about sexualizing 11-year-old girls. And it has them twerking and moving and gyrating and doing suggestive things. These are 11. They're prepubescent. They haven't even hit puberty yet, many of them. And the critics loved it. The media loved it. That tells you all you need to know, what their true agenda is. This is from 508. Jeff, if you want an example of how prevalent this horror is, Democrat gubernatorial candidate Elliot Cutler of Maine is now in prison for possessing child pornography, which of course requires children to have been enslaved. Let me just read one more. This is from 202, so Washington, D.C. is listening. Jeff, in large part, the engine of child sex slavery is an open border Is it any wonder why Democrats and progressives, especially their rich and powerful leaders and donors, are all for open borders? Well, that's the key. Once you see this movie, it's not that it makes this point, but you can't escape it. Open borders means child trafficking, child slavery. It is the engine of child sex slavery. There's no getting around it. So if you believe in a secure border, you're a modern day abolitionist. That cuts off a lot of the supply. And that's why the libs are going berserk over this film. Now, very quickly, Tim Ballard is being viciously attacked by the left, by liberals. This is a guy who led raid after raid, mission after mission. I don't know how many children he rescued from sexual slavery and child trafficking and being kidnapped. You would think this guy would be a hero.
Tim Ballard has one mission: to track down child traffickers. 4 months ago, Colombian authorities asked him to investigate a tip that children were being sold there as sex slaves.
Within a half hour, this individual walks up to me, starts asking me what I'm here for, what I want, and within minutes, he says, well, I've got kids as young as 11 years old.
This is from a previous piece years ago by CBS before the movie. So CBS, it was fine. But now with the movie, everything has changed. Listen now to Tim Ballard. Roll cut 45. Mike.
This is a true story. These are real kids. I mean, these kids are my friends. They're young adults now, the ones that were rescued. They're going to come out soon and tell their story. It's going to be very awkward when the mainstream media comes after these kids next and accuses them of being part of some conspiracy when, in fact, they were rescued from a life of rape.
They were rescued from a life of rape. So what, all these kids are lying to now? Yeah? Yeah, there's no child pornography, no child sex trafficking, no, it's all made up, huh? Yeah, it's all part of one big conspiracy, huh? You people are sick. You liberals are sick, I'm telling you. I'm telling you, the Bills in Sudbury, the Bens in North Andover, the Chris's in Gloucester, all of you, look in the mirror, man. Seriously, look in the mirror. Look at what you've become. Look at what your movement has become. Look at what your party has become. Listen now to Tim Ballard saying, I'll tell you why they hate this movie and why they have to lie about it. And CK is right in Georgia. I know the number is much higher, but the official government statistic, what they're admitting to, is 85,000 children under Biden have disappeared, most of them sold into slavery in our own country, just in the United States. Roll cut 46, Mike.
I think that the left and these media outlets, they don't want to have a discussion that this film is going to compel. A discussion about why 85,000 children showed up unaccompanied at the border and got released into the interior of a country that is the highest consuming country for child exploitation material on the planet. They don't want to talk about why these same publications are pushing an agenda to change the word pedophile to minor attracted persons in order to normalize sexual activity with children. I think that's what they're trying to avoid, and they know this film's going to shine a light on all of the things, all the atrocities happening to children, and so they have to discredit it by lying about it.
Bingo. Bingo. Ballard nailed it. He absolutely nailed it. He nailed it. Now, let me throw this log on the fire. And it's not a pleasant conversation, but it's sort of like slavery in the 19th century. We are the abolitionists. If anyone will have this conversation, it will be us. And honestly, if anyone will free these children, it will be us. It will be our movement. That's the essence of our movement. We are about freedom. We are about liberty. We are about making everyone, God's children, be protected here in the United States. That's what we're ultimately about. Because we believe that everyone, every American, everyone is created in the image and likeness of God. That is the essence of our movement. And so let's have this conversation. What is it about the United States? Now look, to be fair Canada has a problem with child pornography. Europe has a problem with child pornography. Culturally, across the Middle East, in Afghanistan, for example, molesting children is quite prevalent. It just is. Asia, Japan, Korea, China, huge problem with child exploitation and child pornography. Or in Latin America too. It's a global phenomenon. Please don't misunderstand me. But why is it that we are one, if not the largest consumer of child porn? Why? Why? What is it about our country? Why? Why are we the largest consumer of child sex? Why are we, of all the countries in the world, if not the one of the, why this appetite to enslave a child, to molest a child, to sexually exploit a child? Why? What is it? This is satanic. This is evil. This is diabolical. It's demonic. Of all the sins, this may be the worst sin. Why? What does it say about us as a culture, as a society, as a nation, as a people? And to me, that's the question. The rest of the world produces the supply. We're producing a lot of the demand. Why is that? And in particular, let's really go there. What is it about our elites? You know, George Washington was not into kids. Abraham Lincoln was not into kids. Carnegie, Rockefeller, the old titans, business titans, they weren't into kids. In fact, it was the opposite. They were all very Victorian. They were all extremely proper in their morality. I'm not glamorizing the old days. I'm just saying this appetite, this desire, this obsession, this need, this craving to have sex with children and to have them younger and younger and younger and to sexualize children in Hollywood, among our politicians, among members of Congress, among Wall Street, among so many wealthy, prominent Americans. Why? What is driving this? I'm not talking about the supply, the actual, we get it, it's the open border. But the craving in the heart, the internal desire, what is it about our soul, our national soul, that it's gotta be kids? Because to me, I can't think of a more horrific crime. Rape is horrible, don't get me wrong, murder, of course. But my God, to sexually molest and exploit a child, a la Jeffrey Epstein, a la Epstein Island? May God have mercy on your soul. And so my question to all of you is, what is it about the United States? What is it? I want to hear from you. 617-266-6868. Lines are jammed. Mark in Medford. Thanks for holding, Mark, and welcome.
Morning, Jeff. Good morning, Jeff. First off, I just want to say, hope your dad's doing well up in Montreal.
Thank you. Thank you, Mark. Thank you.
And, Jeff, you know why these people are all pissed off about it? Because every time the truth comes out, it exposes them more and more. Think about it, Jeff, for a minute. This is the second movie now within a year, okay, that has actual footage that expose the truth about everything. And once again, we have lies and propaganda. You see a pattern forming here, Jeff?
Mark, do you think, let's just, call a spade, but if you disagree with me, please tell me, do you think Hollywood hates this movie? Many liberals, many journalists, many in the media, many Democrats hate this movie because so many of them are pedophiles themselves? Or they turn a blind eye or defend, say, the sexualization and grooming of children? So either they are pedophiles or their agenda is about pushing pedophilia and sexualizing, grooming children. Is that why they hate this movie so much? Because it exposes them and their agenda.
Absolutely, that's why, Jeff. I'll tell you something right now, Jeff. The people that are against this movie, that hate it, that is afraid to have the truth exposed on them, I'm going to guarantee you this: 50% of them are pedophiles, and the other 50%, Jeff, and correct me if I'm saying this wrong, but the other 50% are the people that are now ashamed that supported the politicians that are into this crap and supported all these global elite celebrity movie stars that are into this crap. Now they have their heads buried in the sand, and they don't want to say nothing but just be in denial and say, oh, no, this can't happen. I supported these people. I voted for these people. So this can't be the truth. So it has to be lies and propaganda because that's what they're telling me because
brilliant.
These people are supposed to be the good people.
Oh, brilliant, Mark, brilliant. You're right. It's not just that they're doing it themselves. It's the other half, which are like, well, I voted for him. I supported him. I backed him. This can't be true. What does it say about me? So it's like, see no evil, speak no evil, hear no evil, deny, 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 deny. Mark, do you think this movie is going to continue to grow? Do you think its influence is going to continue to expand and expand? Or do you think they can suppress it and contain it?
Well, Jeff, and I'd be honest, I haven't seen it yet, but I am going to go see it. I'm going to take my wife and we're going to go see it. And I think it's going to get bigger. It's going to expose even more. And I got one more thing to say, Jeff. I want to issue an open challenge right now on your show for any moonbat, libtard, whack job out there that wants to defend being against this movie, and that includes the Three Stooges that come on every week. And you know who I'm talking about. I want to issue a challenge. I guarantee you, Jeff, you will not get a single freaking phone call from one liberal moonbat whack job out there today because they are ashamed of themselves and they will not admit, I can't believe I supported these people.
Mark, drop the mic. Thank you so much for that call, Mark. 617-266-6868. To the liberals out there, you know what? I'm taking up Mark on his offer. I'm issuing a challenge. CNN, The Washington Post, Rolling Stone, The Guardian, liberal media outlets are trashing this movie. Tell me why this is a bad, evil movie. I dare you. If you have the guts, tell me why you're opposed to this movie. I'd love to hear it. 617-266-6868 is the number. Christine in Maine. Thanks for holding, Christine, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff.
Hi, Christine.
Prayers for your dad.
Thank you, Christine.
Okay, well, I saw the movie actually on July 3rd in Sanford, Maine, and I got my tickets a week ahead. When I got to the theater, it said it was sold out. I already had my tickets, and we got into the theater, and they changed the theater. They put it in another one, and we sat there for about a half hour, and they said that they apologized because the movie couldn't be downloaded in the other theater, and so that's why we had to wait a half hour. But there were empty seats even in our theater. There were a lot of people, but no way it was sold out. You could hear a pin drop, by the way, in this movie. So that being said, I don't have children, but I feel that children should see this, 12, 13 years old, because their parents can tell them, listen, like my parents did, don't talk to anybody, don't go with strangers, blah, 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 blah. It would be difficult for the kids, but you know what? They're putting all these drag queen things out there. I mean, this is important. I think children should see it. But that's my opinion. Again, I don't have children. The other thing is, I thought of Jeff Epstein, and I forgot about the woman's name, but her...
Ghislaine Maxwell. Ghislaine, she was basically his front person, and she fed him the kids, like that character in the movie.
To see the little girl modeling or whatever the heck she was doing. I find those two actors, those little kids, the little girl and boy, should get an Academy Award for what they did. That had to be difficult for them to do that movie. The other thing is Adam Walsh. Remember back years ago when his son was abducted in the mall?
Yes.
And then they found him and he was murdered. And then he ended up having the TV show talking about missing children. So that goes way back. The other thing is if you get a chance, Elmira Savino, I don't know I probably saw her in one movie in my entire life. But I went on and was kind of Googling, the actors. And in 2005, she's always had a passion for human rights advocacy. They picked the perfect actress to be in this movie because she has always been an advocate for human trafficking, and she got a Golden Globe when she, way back when. But anyway, so I guess I'm done. Did I get sick watching the movie? No, but I was like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God.
Well, it really keeps you on the edge of your seat. I mean, Christine, I'm like, come on. I mean, I don't want to give anything away to people who haven't seen it, but I was riveted. I could not take my eyes off that screen. It was one hell of a movie. I mean, it's an experience. Christine, thank you very much for that call. I just want to go quickly on your first point. No, Grace brought Ashton. Grace has seen the movie twice. First time I was up in Montreal, taking care of my dad. So she took Ashton and the two of them went to see it. Ashton's 13. I'm not saying it's an easy movie for a 13-year-old, but he handled it fine. In fact, it inspired him. He wants to get involved. He wants to do things. He's now much more aware. Now I don't have to tell him anymore. Watch out for strangers. Be careful who you speak to. Watch over your sister when you're in a crowded area or in a public area. Protect your sister. After seeing this movie, I don't need to tell him again. So I do think it's appropriate for 12, 13, 14-year-old kids to go. Ava's a bit too young. She's 10. But I think, no, a 13-year-old child, we took Ashton. He's fine. In fact, he's always asking me questions about the movie, and he loved it. And then Grace and I saw it. She saw it a second time on Monday with me. And afterwards, she said, just as good the second time as the first time, which is the mark of a great movie. Brian in Waltham. Thanks for holding, Brian, and welcome.
Hi, Jeff. First time, long time.
Welcome,
I'm calling because I saw the movie on Monday night, and Mondays are usually a night, if you go to the movies ever on a Monday, the theater is completely empty. This particular movie, it was packed with people, and the audience was completely silent throughout the entire movie, which in my opinion is the mark of a really good movie, because if nobody's on their phones, nobody's talking, it means they're actually paying attention to it because it's that riveting. But a couple of points I wanted to make on this. You had mentioned earlier that this movie should win all of the awards. I totally agree, but I'll tell you exactly why it won't. In 1999, the number one movie that swept the Academy Awards in every category was American Beauty. That movie was about a father in suburbia who fell in love with his daughter's best friend, who was a minor.
Brian, I'm up against a hard break. Can you please hang on? 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, Sound of Freedom is roaring up the charts in terms of the box office. It is number 3, the number 3 movie in the United States, which is incredible, because Hollywood has been trying to blackball the film. Liberal media outlets are vilifying it. Democrats have been trying to prevent it from being shown. It is a miracle it got made. It's a miracle it's now being seen. And yet, despite all of the odds, it has now hit $40 million and climbing. Have you seen Sound of Freedom? And do you think it was as great a movie as I did? And did it change you? I know it changed me. Did it change you? 617-266-6868 is the number. Let's go right back to Brian in Waltham. Brian, you were making a really good point. Hollywood will not recognize this film, even though it should. It should sweep the awards category. It won't. But in 1999, they gave an Academy to American Beauty, which has stars Kevin Spacey. By the way, speaking of, child exploitation and pedophilia, Spacey's always been in the news for years now for his, how should we say, proclivities towards young underage people, towards young underage sexual activity. So he's another one, but he plays a suburban father who is romantically interested in the best friend of his daughter who happens to be underage. Please, Brian, pick up where you left off.
So that's one of the reasons I think that this will not win any awards, despite the fact that it should sweep the entire award season in every category. Now, the other reason is that who votes on which film wins the awards? It's the actors, actresses, directors in Hollywood who are members of the Academy. This is why this movie was made. Jim Caviezel, in one of his interviews that he gave, talked about how prevalent Hollywood has been in promoting pedophilia and exploitation of children, and he's absolutely 100% right. It's so prevalent in Hollywood, and that's what influences people and their minds. That's why this is such a big problem right now for everybody in this country. Why people have pornography addictions, why people are drawn to images of young children in sexual situations, the sexualization of children. It's all driven by Hollywood. And that's why this movie won't win any awards, despite the fact that it should win all of the awards.
Brian, I think you hit the nail on the head. I think you absolutely hit the nail right on the head. Brian, I think of Roman Polanski, and Hollywood has been deifying him, celebrating, lionizing him for how many years? And yet he had to flee the United States because he was accused of raping. What was she, 14 years old, 15 years old at the time? Anyway, so, he's a pedophile, or at least he's an accused pedophile and a child rapist. And Hollywood loves the guy. Brian, I think of all of these child actors, how many of them now, over 20, who came out saying, we were used, we were molested, we were sexually exploited, everybody knew it, powerful directors, producers, actors, actresses, many of them were the ones doing the exploiting and the molesting, and nobody lifted a finger. So, Brian, I think you're right. A lot of this is centered in Hollywood, and they drive so much of our sick popular culture. Brian, do you think this expose, is it going to awaken people to the severity of the problem? And do you think, like the abolitionist movement, we're going to start to push back and now demand that these people are held accountable and that many of them go to jail for the rest of their lives?
That's the call to action here. Absolutely. Yes. And we need to make this happen. This has to manifest itself. And I think that this movie, between the movie and everybody praying for these children who are in this situation, that's what will drive the movement forward.
Brian, thank you so much for your call. Really good call. Alex in Florida. Thanks for holding, Alex, and welcome.
Hey, Jeff, pedophilia is a tenet of Satanism, and sadly it's not just the Democrats, even though they're one of the most they're probably more involved than the Republicans, but it's all globalism. They worship Satan, Jeff. And if you look at the Bible, all the abominations that Jesus talks about is exactly what they do. They're for abusing children. They're for transgenderism. Jesus says that we have to become his children to inherit the kingdom of heaven. And they're just the exact opposite of it. And I heard that Trump and Putin had a commitment to end child and human sex trafficking. And that's one of the reasons why Trump is hated so much. And Putin.
Well, I think there's no question that Trump, Tim Ballard talks about this. He met with Trump. You can see pictures of the meeting. And he really stressed his experiences, how about that the open border fuels child slavery and child sex trafficking. And he said, you can be the modern day William Wilberforce. You can be the modern day Abraham Lincoln. You can break the back of modern day slavery. If you can build that wall, secure that border, and go after these cartels and traffickers. And from that moment on, the globalists declared war on Trump. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, emails, texts, I mean, it's jammed. Everything is jammed. Phenomenal, by the way. The audience today, absolutely on fire. What many of you are pointing out, Mark is one of them, Roman Polanski. So here you have one of the biggest moral degenerates and perverts of our time, literally had to flee the United States, accused of molesting and sexually assaulting a minor. A minor. He's an accused child molester. And Whoopi Goldberg defended him. Many in Hollywood did. But Whoopi in particular said, oh, come on. It wasn't, child rape. And these people are sick. They're sick. And that's why I think Brian is onto something. Why are we the number one or one of the biggest consumers of child sex? Child pornography, child trafficking, child slavery. I think a big reason, it may not be the whole reason, but I think a good chunk of it is Hollywood. And how many pedophiles there are in Hollywood. And how many people deliberately look the other way. And, I'm sorry, but I got to call it the way I see it. 99% of them are liberals and Democrats. Whoopi Goldberg, huge lib, huge Democrat. So liberalism has a pedophilia problem. And the fact now that these liberal outlets are viciously attacking and criticizing this movie, how could you be against how could you be against this film that says child sex trafficking and child sex slavery is evil? So when these libs lecture us about slavery 150, 60 years ago, all we have to do is turn around and say, don't talk to me about 150, 60 years ago. Do you believe in shutting down the border? Do you believe in ending the modern slavery of our time? Because that's what you, Biden, and the entire corrupt Washington cartel have been enabling now for years. And just like Abraham Lincoln, the only one that stands in their way is Trump and the MAGA movement. We are the abolitionists of the 21st century. 617-266-6868 is the number. Anthony in Boston. Thanks for holding, Anthony, and welcome.
Hi, good morning, Jeff. How are you?
I'm good. How are you, Anthony?
I'm doing well. Jeff, Dostoevsky said, if there is no God, all things are permissible. You're asking the question, how is this possible? What has happened to the soul of the country? What has happened to the soul of the man? You're asking the most important question, Jeff, because that's the question each one of us has to be faced with as an individual and as a nation. 30 years ago, 1993, the movie Schindler's List came out. I went to see that movie. When that movie ended, and I haven't seen this, I haven't seen this one that you're talking about today. I actually just found out about it this morning. When I saw Schindler's List, my wife and I, at the end of that movie, which was a packed theater, got up. There was absolute silence. You could hear a pin drop. Everyone just got up, put their jackets on, without saying a single word, walked out of that movie theater. The irony couldn't be any thicker. That the very same moral problem that was behind the death camps in Auschwitz is exactly what's behind this. It's godlessness. And when we reduce human beings to animals, what else could possibly happen? We've reduced them to animals. And if all a human is, if all a person is a grown-up germ that fortuitously emerged from the slime, then there is no human value. There is no human dignity, because the dirt, the primordial slime, doesn't have a dignity to hand on to its offspring. Only if there's a God, only if there's a creator, is slavery wrong. Only if there's a God is racism wrong. Only if there's a God is child sex slave wrong. Jeff, we live in a godless culture, and we are seeing the fruits of evil in this wholesale rejection of the existence of God.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Anthony, I agree with every single word, letter, comma, syllable, everything what you said. I want to ask you this, and maybe I'm being a little bit obtuse, and if I am, forgive me. I hear you, and I agree with you. This is what I don't get. Canada is godless. It's not that I'm trying to quibble. I'm not. I'm just trying to really understand the root of the problem. I don't know. France is godless. Sweden is godless. Japan is godless. Now, yes, they do consume child pornography. Yes, they're involved in child sex trafficking. But for some reason in this country, it's worse. That's what it's godlessness. But why do we have this obsession with children, child sex, that to a degree and an intensity and in the numbers that you just don't see in other countries? That's what I can't wrap my mind around this. Anthony, do you have a theory on that?
Jeff, the United States is a consumer-driven culture. We consume to please our flesh. Okay? Everything, advertising by definition is a way that you dangle a carrot in front of somebody to satisfy their flesh. And I've never been to France. I've never been to Canada. I'm sure they're not very much different in that sense. But what I will say is, in this country, we've placed such a huge value on the pleasing of the flesh through material possessions, through the accumulation of wealth, through everything and anything but the actual fulfillment of the soul. St. Augustine said, "Our hearts are restless within us until we find our place with you, O Lord." That was St. Augustine. That was in the 4th century. Okay? For an hour and a half to get on the radio with a man who does not and is not ashamed to use the words sin, satanic, Satanism. You will never, ever, ever hear these words in a motion picture today. You will not hear them on television. You will not hear them on sitcoms. Those words have been eradicated from our culture. Because what Satan, who's the father of lies, Jesus called Satan the father of lies. What he would like, nothing more, is to convince people that sin isn't real. Because if you don't have sin, and if sin's not real, then you don't need a savior. And that will he will do anything to push people as far away from the need of a savior as possible. He's the craftiest, the most shrewd of all of those animals, if you're reading Genesis chapter 3. And the very first words recorded in Scripture of Satan is, "Did God really say?" So how does that sound today? Did God really say let us create them in our image, both male and female. Well, now we're hearing in our culture there is no such thing as male or female. We're redefining that. Did God really say that in the womb, I knew you before I formed you in the womb? Well, no, we don't. God didn't really say that. What he's saying is that's not a human being. That's a fetus. Human beings that you're talking about during the abolitionist slavery movement. Back in April, I went to Charleston, South Carolina, and I went to the largest plantation. It was the Middleton plantation. And I sat.
Oh yeah, I went to that one. Yeah, that's the one I went to. Please go ahead, Anthony. But yeah, Grace
Absolutely.
and I. Go ahead, please tell him. It was whoa. You want to talk about chill down my spine? It raised the hair, the hair on the back of my neck. Go ahead,
Yeah.
go ahead,
Okay.
Anthony.
And what I'll tell you, what affected me the most was walking into the room that had these metal plaques on the walls that had the names of each slave and how much they were purchased for. Children were worth $0. The elderly were worth $0. The handicapped were worth $0. On average, $100 to $300. The most money paid for another human being was $700, and these were your skilled carpenters, your skilled, your masonry guys, farmers, the ones that were the greatest asset. They were human assets. They were purchased as non-humans. They were not considered human beings. And when we as a culture start looking at our fellow man as anything less than image bearers of the creator of the universe, as I started off saying, Dostoevsky said it, if there is no God, all things are permissible. The Apostle Paul in Romans 1, I would beg your listeners who never pick up a Bible or have walked away from it for whatever reason, pick it up and read Romans chapter 1.
Anthony, one of the best calls I've ever had. Thank you so much for that call. 617-266-6868 is the number. Have you seen Sound of Freedom? It's been out now for about a week. It is doing extremely well despite all of the odds. It is one of the most entertaining, powerful, riveting movies you will ever see. Very few movies will change you. This movie changes you. And I just want to give full kudos to Jim Caviezel, Tim Ballard, Angel Studios that had the guts to produce it. And really, again, Grace will come on in about 10 minutes and she'll say, you see, Jeff, your naivete is shown through again. I'm stunned that liberals and liberal corporate media are bashing this film. To me, the depths of depravity they know no bounds with these people. It is, to me, shocking and stunning, but here it is. So, a movie that exposes the evils of child slavery, child pornography, child sex trafficking. And now liberals are against that. 617-266-6868. Okay, very quickly, best audience in the business. An email from Larry. Jeff, we have to be correct and we need to clarify. Roman Polanski, is not an alleged pedophile. He's in caps, convicted child rapist. He fled before being sentenced. The media is playing cutesy with terms, forcing us to have to be absolutely correct in our speech. Larry, you're right. I'm wrong. I stand corrected. You're right. He is a convicted child rapist. And Whoopi Goldberg loves him. Hollywood loves him. They love him. A few years ago, they gave him a Lifetime Tribute Award. I mean, they love the guy. So, Kevin Spacey, good. Roman Polanski, good. Jim Caviezel and Sound of Freedom, very bad. 617-266-6868 is the number. Joanne in Boston. Thanks for holding, Joanne, and welcome.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I called a few weeks ago. I'm going to give you one word, and this is the reason, adrenochrome. They're taking the adrenochrome from these children, especially the very, very young. And I've been following this for 9 years, and it's very upsetting. And you don't know what they're doing to these kids. They're torturing them to get the adrenochrome. I'm telling people, look it up. Look it up. Look up Dr. Shiva. He explains it really, really well online about the adrenochrome. Okay? And it's worse than the pedophilia. I'm telling you. People need to know it's going to come out. Mel Gibson touched on it, but I didn't see the movie yet, but I've been following this for 9 years. And I tried to tell you this when I called a few weeks ago. It's all about the children. You don't know what to do to them. It's so upsetting.
It is. No, Joanne, it is. I really, it's heartbreaking. I really, really share your anger and frustration and sadness. There's another story. I just want to stick to the movie because it's such a phenomenon, and it's a light at the end of the tunnel. It has inspired so much faith and hope and such a good positive reaction among so many people. So I just, we have so much bad news. I really want to focus on the good, but it's coming out now. These surgeries that are being done on children, prepubescent children, 7, 8, 9 years old. There's one of these surgeons now. He calls himself a queer surgeon. Dr. Blair Peters. He's out in Oregon. He's actually a Canadian, but he's practicing in Oregon. He literally openly admitted in an interview, we're experimenting on these kids. We're ripping out their genitals, giving them chemicals. It's castration. We're castrating kids, giving them puberty blockers, chemicals that are irreversible, that destroy these children, we are destroying their genitals. They will never be able to reproduce again. We're actually creating eunuchs. God forgive me, but that's what we're creating. And he openly says, yeah, we don't know how this is all going to turn out. We don't know the consequences of any of this. The kids are now laboratory rats. They're guinea pigs. And he says, yeah, we're just experimenting on them. And we'll see what happens. It's Mengele. It's Joseph Mengele. It's the spirit of Mengele. And we're the only ones now that stand in their way. And I'm telling you, this movie, Joanne, see it. I urge everyone, see it, because it creates what's called a revolution of the mind. And Alexis de Tocqueville, the great French liberal philosopher who loved America, by the way, wrote Democracy in America, the best book ever by a foreigner on the United States, said if you want to understand a revolution, it happens in the mind first. Once people's minds are changed, then eventually the actual revolution takes place. This movie, like Uncle Tom's Cabin, it creates a revolution in the mind. You're changed. You're permanently changed. And there will be no going back. Joanne, thank you so much for that call. And may God bless you. 617-266-6868 is the number. Jeff in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, Jeff, and welcome.
Hey, Jeff. Thanks for having me. Hope your day's going okay.
Very good. Well, the show is one of my best shows, frankly. The reaction from the audience and the callers has been stratospheric.
Well, a little while ago, the reason I'm calling is you asked a question about why we think that this issue is such a prevalent problem with the elites in our country.
Yes.
And a theory I've picked up from a person I follow on the internet makes total sense to me. And if you think about how Hollywood elites are run, the elites in the government, the elites in the mainstream media, it's run like a gang. How do you get into a gang? You get jumped in. What do you do to get jumped in? You do something that's highly illegal, and you witness doing it, so you can't turn on the gang. It's the same thing in Hollywood, mainstream media, the upper echelons of the government.
Well, Jeff, I think you're really onto something, because as one of the texters pointed out, Jeffrey Epstein was evil. I mean, again, satanic, demonic. There's no question. But like many evil people, he was a genius. People, you can be both. That's, the devil in many ways is that. The devil is evil, but genius, right? Brilliant. Well, his genius was he understood culture and he understood psychology. And he understood that the most unspeakable, unforgivable taboo is pedophilia. So if you can rope politicians or, Hollywood actors or producers, or just look at the list of people who went to Orgy, as it was called, Orgy Island, Epstein's Island. And we're not talking, these were 20-year-old women or 20-year-old men, and these were underage, mostly girls. Some boys, mostly girls. It's a who's who. It's a who's who of the media. It's a who of presidents. It's a who's who of politicians. A who's who of Oprah Winfrey, of Hollywood moguls, Wall Street financiers, billionaires. So he understood that if you capture them doing something as unspeakable as, forgive me, diddling a kid, molesting a child, and you have it on camera, you got him. You got him. In a way that, say, a mistress or a lover or even snorting cocaine, you got him. Now, my theory, Jeff, I don't want to get too sidetracked. I think not only do the Ukrainians have Biden and the Bidens on money and money crimes and bribery and money laundering. You look at Joe Biden, you look at what he did to his daughter, alleged. You look at how he's been sniffing little girls. You look at his son Hunter and what's been found on that laptop. Child porn. What's been found regarding an underage family member and how sexually suggestive she was beside Hunter and scantily clad, practically nothing on her. I think they have the Bidens involved in child sex crimes. You want my honest opinion? I'm giving you my honest opinion. Because once you have somebody involved in pedophilia, you've got them. I mean, your tentacles are right in them. It's the most unforgivable taboo. Money, cocaine, drugs, mistresses, you can survive that. Child sex, you can't. And so I agree with you. I think there's almost like an initiation. And you get them initiated, and it's like selling your soul to the devil. If this is what you want to be really successful, this is what you have to do, and they use it as blackmail. I mean, Jeff, am I misstating your position?
Not at all. Now, I have one other quick thing to just run by you. I don't have corroboration of this, but I heard around the way that the island next door to Epstein's island was owned by one of the Bidens. Not Joe, but one of the brothers.
Oh, I wouldn't be surprised. I really wouldn't be surprised.
Well,
you look at Obama.
That would keep a lot of the elites off the flight logs.
Oh, yeah, no question. Oh, no question. No, there's no question. Look, you look at the Obamas, you look at Obama, you look at the Clintons, you look at the Bidens. I'm just going to go with those three. I mean, perverts, sexual degenerates, deviants, whatever you want to call them. That's how they roll. So if our leaders are engaging in this kind of behavior, my God, no wonder we're the world's #1 consumer of child sex. I mean, just look at who flocked to that, and not just who flocked to the island, but how the media has tried to cover it up. Instead of saying we need to expose this and hold them accountable, they want to bury and sweep this story under the rug. So that tells you they're morally complicit. That tells you everything you need to know, how deep the rot is. That's why this movie, again, like Uncle Tom's Cabin, it's got to be discredited. It's got to be destroyed. It's got to be vilified, because this is going to launch a moral reawakening. And that's the last thing they want.
Thank God it will.
Jeff, phenomenal call. Thank you so much, and thank you for your courage, because you're saying what many people are thinking. Okay, She's been waiting now in the bullpen. We have her. Thank you for that call, Jeff. We have her now. Dr. Grace putting liberals in their place. Grace Vuoto, former nationally syndicated talk show host, political analyst, political commentator. I have to say it, or else the libs are going to take me off the air for violating FCC rules. She's my wife, my better half. Grace, how are you?
I am well, Jeff. Thank you very much for having me on this important topic.
You saw Sound of Freedom. You saw it once with Ashton. You loved it. He loved it. You saw it the second time with the Kuhner man on Monday. Let me ask you, what did you make of the movie? What do you think of it? And is this one of the greatest films ever made?
Jeff, this movie is one of the most powerful films I have ever seen. And I have to give great kudos to Jim Caviezel, who's acting, there's only one word for it, it's transcendental. It's transcendental. He taps into his faith, his conviction, and there are so many nuances to his performance. When I saw it the second time, I was even more impressed with him. This is, first and foremost, I want to say, contrary to what all the critics are saying, to many of them, like Rolling Stone is bashing this film, RogerEbert.com has a columnist bashing this film. These people are crazy. This is a formidable piece of art. Jim Caviezel's acting is absolutely outstanding. He transforms himself. If you look at his face many times, he transforms himself into various moods, various shades. And sometimes, when he delivers his lines, you feel as though a divine power is putting those words in him. As though through him, we are all being told, everybody, wake up. It's time to take care of the children. God's children are not for sale. When he delivers that line, that moment is so arresting. I felt like I saw almost the voice of Jesus come through him. I know it's a surreal moment in film that I've never experienced before. I would love to hear if your audience feels the same. At that moment, did you think it was Jim Caviezel talking, or did you feel like there was a divine invocation that came right through him out of the screen? I've never seen that in the movies. It gave me chills. I felt awakened. I felt awakened spiritually. I realized in seeing somebody like Jim Caviezel makes me feel like, gee, maybe my faith has to be even deeper than it is. When somebody can tap into that, how profound are they? And so it is a formidable piece of acting. It's a great piece of art. And more than that, it is alarming. The information that is given is information that we are generally not told or we're not informed about. And you and I are informed people. Your audience is a very informed audience. I wonder how many of them know, like what I didn't know. I did not know that the U.S. is the number one destination for human trafficking and is one of the largest consumers of child sex. I mean, I knew that it took place here, but I didn't know that this is one of the things that we're number one in now, right now. I'm astonished. How could it be in this country that is supposed to be the example to the world, that is supposed to be the city upon the hill, that was founded by the Puritans? How could we be the number one destination for human trafficking? How could that be? I was floored. I cannot accept that.
I asked the audience this earlier, and I'd like to get your take on this. Why? Anthony from Boston, a brilliant call, said, look, it's godlessness. He cited Dostoevsky, for example, among others. Once you remove God, everything becomes permissible. And I said, yeah, I think you're right, but Sweden is godless. France is godless. Canada's godless. Japan is godless. I'm not saying they don't have child porn, of course. I'm not saying they don't engage in child trafficking. They do. But it's not quite as prevalent, as rampant, as deep, as numerous as it is here. What is it about the United States that for some reason now our elites and so many wealthy Americans are obsessed with having sex with kids?
Well, Jeff, I think that the key word in that sentence is wealth. because this is what you see over and over again. You know, the FBI profile, who are they looking for and who are they trying to imitate? They say again and again, act like a drunk, really rich American. So basically, this is a very wealthy activity. It takes a lot of money to be engaged in this kind of activity. So that's what you see, and they're recruiting people with money in order to create the sting operation. I think that because America is such a wealthy country, we end up having people that are hedonistic to the point of demonic activity, diabolical activity. And look, the Bible tells us very clearly, once you open that gateway to lust, now I'm not talking about, once in a while people make a mistake and then they go to confession and they right themselves. Okay, that's all within the norm. I'm talking about once you say there's no right or wrong, I'm going to explore my sexuality. I'm just going to explore it. I'm going to go all in. Well, the deeper you go into that, it is a bottomless pit. It will suck you in. You know, they say about you dance with the devil, and sooner or later, you become the devil. I mean, this is what it is. Lust is a bottomless pit, and I think we have created a society where there are a group of people that instead of calling it lust, they think it's exploration. Well, go ahead and explore that, and before you know it, you are in the snares of the devil. You have lost your way completely, that you cannot see how diabolical it is to be craving a child.
Grace, we've got about a couple minutes left. Rolling Stone, The Washington Post, CNN, The Guardian, it goes on and on and on. Apparently, the New York Times now is preparing a hit piece on Jim Caviezel, Tim Ballard, and the movie. Why are so many liberal media outlets, why are so many prominent liberals and leftists so opposed and vilifying this movie?
It's because the movie is so powerful. People in the front seat, when you and I were watching it, they were crying buckets. I cried not just the first time, but the second time as well. And actually, the second night that I saw the second time, that night I could hardly sleep. Because the more I think about it, the more I can't stand it. And so I think they have to squash this movie because they are trying to prevent an awakening. This movie is about awakening each and every one of us and telling us, did you know your neighbor might be involved in this? We're talking about the car salesman that you know, the banker that you know, the rich buddy that you know who engages in sexual tourism, etc. Did you know this? This is what this movie is saying. Did you know this? And I'm sitting there saying, no, I didn't know this. I didn't know this. I didn't know this. And they don't want us to know this. Because if we all know this, and if we all feel as powerfully as I feel, and as your audience feels, there would be a revolution and this thing would end. So they are trying to prevent the awakening, and it shows you how depraved they are, that they can't see something so basic like you do not harm a child ever under any circumstances, and you don't give it any other name, and you don't give it any excuse. It is not to be done. Period. There's a climactic scene where one of the rich people who used to be a drug lord is now on the good side. He says he ultimately came to the conclusion the darkness is him. Well, the darkness is clearly all of them who can't see so clearly. When something is so clearly light, there's only one word for the person that doesn't see light. You yourself are the darkness.
Grace, we've got 1 minute left. Do you think the movie is going to continue to be successful, or do you think these liberal attacks are going to succeed?
This movie is going to continue to succeed. It is going to light a revolution. It is lighting a fire in all of us. It's going to light a fire in Christians. I think it is the beginning of a movement to stop this. And I think there's going to be more movies about the topic. This is going to be the first of many. We're going to return to this moment and say, that was the time that my eyes were opened. I'll never forget that moment in the movies, or I'll never forget that moment my friend told me to go, or my mother, or my sister, or my brother, and I need to do something. And so many people will react this way, and it'll be such a success that even more movies are going to be made. They're not going to be able to put this genie back in the bottle, Jeff. It is just too diabolical, because ultimately the theme cuts across party lines and ideological lines. For the most part, Jeff, when we look at a child, for the most part, I'm not saying the depraved, but for the most part, adults agree about what is right and what is wrong. I think there'll be too many people who will say, no, absolutely not. This is a bridge too far.
It is the 21st century version of Uncle Tom's Cabin by Harriet Beecher Stowe that ignited, really propelled the abolitionist movement. I believe this movie will now do the same in the 21st century. Dr. Grace putting liberals in their place. Grace, as always, thank you so much, and we'll talk to you next week. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, I want to ask all of you, have you seen Sound of Freedom? And do you agree with Grace? Did you feel at times that Jim Caviezel's performance was transcendental? That it was so powerful, so visceral, so moving, that you almost felt it was Christ himself at times speaking to you to go and save the children. That's the experience. A lot of people are now saying that this is one of these movies that is transformative. I know after seeing it, I can't look at this issue and frankly the world the same again. My eyes were closed. Now they're open. Is it the same for you? 617-266-6868 is the number. And let me throw this log on the fire. Now that the left has completely outed itself, and they are now vilifying, attacking, and disparaging, trashing this movie, have they now been shown to be pro-pedophilia? If this is where liberalism is now ending up, is it over for the left? 617-266-6868. Lines are on fire. Dennis in Leominster. Thanks for holding, Dennis, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you, Dennis?
Good. Jim Caviezel's the GOAT. He is. That was outstanding. I've been following this stuff for a couple of years now, and it's very, very disturbing. But I want to get the best part of this. The whole reason I called was, did you see what the Biden administration just did on their website with the, I don't know if it's the DHS or Homeland Security?
Yeah, Dennis, I read a text message on that earlier. Apparently they scrubbed key sections of their website dealing with child trafficking, international trafficking, domestic trafficking. By the way, this was approved by Biden and by Merrick Garland. So why is Biden and why is Garland, why are they trying to suppress information about how serious the problem of child slavery, that's what this is in the United States? What, Dennis, why would they want to do that? Could it be because of his open border? Could it be because he's responsible for all these children being sold into slavery and then trafficked into the United States? Could that be why they're ashamed and embarrassed for the American people to know the consequences of their policies?
Now, there's a number of reasons, Jeff. The list is a little too long to for the time frame we have here. But they're showing their cards now. They are. It's all going to come out, Jeff. I'm not worried about it.
Dennis, you think this movie is just going to keep on rolling, right? You don't think they can contain it anymore?
No way. No way.
Interesting. Dennis, thank you very much for that call. 617-266-6868. I got to say, again, I'm speaking now as an historian, in this particular aspect. Boy, it reminds me a lot of Uncle Tom's Cabin. The way people are reacting to it, talking about it, it's just, the slaveholders, they will not be able to contain this. It's getting printed. People are reading it. It's being passed on. It's word of mouth. And once they read it, it's like a fire has been lit in their hearts, their souls, their minds. And it's something very similar now with this movie. 617-266-6868. Paulette in Quincy. Thanks for holding, Paulette, and welcome.
Yes. Good morning, Jeff. How are you today?
Good, good, good. How are you, Paulette?
I'm good. So what I listen to every morning. So and I also saw your poll on Twitter. The question was, how would you describe the movie Sound of Freedom, an expose of child trafficking or conspiracy propaganda? First of all, I want to let you know I did see the movie on July 3rd before it even officially came out. I've been following this movie and waiting for it to come out for at least 3 years. They did everything they could to suppress this movie. Disney had the rights to it, and then they got rid of it because they don't want this to come out, and for good reason. The reason being, the people that are involved in the human trafficking involve our politicians. They involve Hollywood. They involve the music industry. This goes deeper than anyone can even fathom. The movie is a great start for people to start asking questions and start digging. This isn't about Republicans versus Democrats. This is about good versus evil. Look at, the statue of Baphomet. Baphomet is a satanic, idol that Satanists, that they worship. And when you look at Baphomet, it has a child on each side. Baphomet itself is transgender. Okay? It has male genitalia, but it also has breasts like a woman. And there are two children looking up at Baphomet like they're worshiping this satanic idol. This has been going on for years. For years, they have been making casual sex okay, sex without marriage okay, having children without marriage. Just think about how this is all developed over the years, and how it's kind of like, at first you said, that's just, your what's the word that I want? I'm sorry. You're surprised at it, and you're sort of like, oh God, that's terrible. But then the more they keep shoving it in your face, the more people accept it and think that that's a normal thing. I'm looking back to, I'm in recovery. I've called you before about me being, involved with people in addiction and mental health. I got sober when I started digging into this stuff, and I started getting closer to God and to my faith, and realizing that I think we're in Revelations right now. And this is God's way of exposing all of the evil and to get people to get back to God and their faith. So anything that is demonized by the left, or even just, it's the right too. I mean, let's talk about the rhinos. Anything that's demonized or says that that's wrong, think opposite, because that's exactly what they're trying to suppress from the people. This stuff has been waiting. Yeah, this stuff has been waiting to come out for years.
It's been percolating for a long time. No, I agree. Paulette, look, thank you. A really interesting call. Thank you so much for that call. No, I mean, the only reason why people are saying, well, Jeff, why aren't you picking on the Republicans? I love to pick on Republicans. But let's be honest, the transgender agenda is being driven by the Democrats. I mean, is it not? Looking now to decriminalize pedophilia, it's being driven by the Democrats. Drag queen story hours being driven by the Democrats. Pushing gay pornography to literally kindergartners or people, children, grade 1, grade 2 is being driven by the Democrats. Now, I'm not saying that there aren't pedophiles or child molesters among Republicans, and there's no question. And I'm not saying that you don't have corrupt, evil people among Republicans. Of course you do. To me, look, you look at so many leading Republicans, they're a bunch of moral degenerates. Who are we kidding? That's part of the problem. So many of them are so complicit. So please don't I don't want you to think that somehow I'm absolving Republicans when I'm not. And I do agree with Paulette. This is not Democrat, Republican, left, right even. This is good versus evil. And to me, what I guess I just found shocking about the movie, I really agree with Grace. I knew it happened. Of course I knew it happened. I didn't think the problem was as widespread or as deep as it is. And the link to slavery and how more children are trafficked today than at the height of the slave trade. That in fact there are more slaves today through child sex trafficking than there ever has been slavery in the history of the world. I'm like, you SOBs, you liberals stand there with your woke ideology and your critical race theory, and you go on about what happened in this country 150, 170, 180, 200 years ago, while you're literally aiding and abetting the slavery of our time. You're encouraging it, you're championing it, you're advocating for it. You just call it illegal, whatever, not even illegal immigration. You just call it immigration. That's all you do. You just call them undocumented immigrants, unaccompanied minors. You use euphemisms. These are child sex slaves. That's what they are. That's what you're peddling. That's what you're enabling. So after you see this movie, again, I just keep going, the revolution of the mind, you can't see things the same way again. And that's why I agree with Grace. This is going to unleash a moral reawakening. 617-266-6868. This is from 508. Jeff, please don't tell me you're comparing Jim Caviezel to Jesus. Absolutely not. No, the point that Grace was making and that I'm making is that there are several moments in the movie, where it is so powerful, it is so strong. And that speech, that pivotal scene where Caviezel's character, he's playing Tim Ballard, says, God's children are not for sale. It's such a striking scene. I've never seen a scene like this ever in the history, in a movie that I've ever seen, where I felt, oh my God, it's as if God is speaking through him, or Christ, or whoever, that the Holy Spirit, whatever. There's something speaking through him. The power of the voice, the strength and overwhelming primacy of the message, the way it pierces you. And I agree, there's something transcendental about his performance. It reminds me a lot of the Passion of the Christ. He put his heart and soul into this role, and it shows. It shows. It's the greatest movie I have ever seen. It is a magnificent film. The production, the direction, the writing, the acting, the children, the two main characters, the supporting actors, the cast, even from Latin America, as I mentioned, these are some of their all-star top actors, went out of their way to say, please, this issue is so dear to us, and it's such an important, compelling issue, we need to be a part of this movie. As I said at the beginning of my opening monologue, if this does not sweep the Academy Awards, I'm telling you, proof positive, Hollywood is full of pedophiles. Case closed. Case closed. Case closed. It's that good of a movie. Mr. Garcia in New Jersey. Thanks for holding, Mr. Garcia, and welcome.
Hi, Mr. Kuhner. I want to ask you a question. You say the Democrat is more promoting the gay agenda, and I want to tell you one question. I wanted Booker promoting, our senator in New Jersey, promoting the gay agenda. He never married, never had a wife, never had no kids, and that disgusts me most. He also,
Mr. Garcia, I'm going to hold you over, and because I'm thinking, yeah, but I'll tell you, you know who's really soft on all these issues? Chris Christie, Asa Hutchinson, Mike Pence. More next. 617-266-6868 is the number, Okay, let's go right back to Mr. Garcia in New Jersey. Mr. Garcia, you were saying there are numerous politicians who just disgust you. They push a radical left-wing agenda, and you're saying it's time. It doesn't matter if they're Democrats or Republicans. It's time we push back. Please pick up where you left off, Mr. Garcia.
Listen, who more responsible, the pastor or the politician? You see all the mega church, not preaching the gospel, to preach sin, to preach we having a problem. And when I went to Guatemala a couple of weeks ago for a week, me and my wife, we see blonde, blue-eyed kid we never see. We left Guatemala almost 35 years ago. When we went, and everybody told me a lot of those United States come to Guatemala to slap young girl at 16, 15, 14, 12-year-old. And I see a lot of young kids with blue eyes. We never see that before. And we have to stop doing, and we have to stop here in the United States right now. We have to stop. And also, we responsible, and also the pastor, forget the politician, the pastor, the mega church, Joe Osteen, not preaching the gospel, supposed to protect us. He's not protecting us.
Well, you know, Mr. Garcia, you make two very interesting points, and thank you very much for your call. I think the churches now, I don't care, Catholic, Protestant, synagogues, if you're Jewish, they need to start speaking out. I think priests, pastors, reverends, you're right, from the pulpit, they need to start condemning this and speaking out. There's no question. Number one. Number two, Mr. Garcia said he's originally from Guatemala. When he left 35 years ago, you never saw somebody with, blonde hair and blue eyes. It was almost unheard of or unseen. Now you're seeing him, quite more often. And that's because of sex tourism. Because a lot of Americans are going to places like that, and that's what the movie starts, that's what the movie documents. They go to these poor countries and they start buying children, or they go to hotels and they sleep with them. And there's big money. And, the point that Grace made to me after Monday, forgive me, where she said, let's be candid, Jeff. Hunter Biden, I'm not singling him out, but he's the archetype. It's Hunter Biden. Hunter Biden is the archetype of the problem in America. Wealthy, rich, drug-fueled, morally bankrupt, and look at him. Nothing but time on his hands. And they're the ones that go down and either go down to these places and molest and sleep with these children, or they buy them and they sleep with them here in the United States. And either their father taught them how to do this, or their father is complicit because he's been molesting his own children. But whatever it is, it's the wealthy, privileged American, usually politically connected or with powerful connections. And it's in music, it's in Hollywood, it's in entertainment, it's in Wall Street, it's in Washington, it's everywhere. And they're the ones with the money, the time, and frankly, the satanic appetite. And that's what's fueling and driving all of this. So this is a devastating expose of the moral rot, the corruption, the evil at the heart of our ruling class. And that's why Hollywood is panicking. That's why the media is panicking. That's why they don't want this movie to be seen. 617-266-6868 is the number. Sue in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, Sue, and welcome.
Hi, Jeff. I just wanted to, and thank you very much for taking my call. I just wanted, if I could just say, the gentleman talked about pastors not speaking, but there are actually pastors speaking out about many things right now, because I hear them all the time. But I would like to talk about Georgia Senator Nancy Schaefer and also the modeling industry. When it comes to Georgia, Nancy Schaefer, she was a senator in Georgia, and she spoke out against the Child Protective Services, and I'm just going to read a quote from her. And it says, "I believe that the Child Protective Services nationwide has become corrupted and that the entire system is broken almost beyond repair. I am convinced that parents and families should be worried of the dangers." And that, that's in our own government. I mean, this is where once they take the children, I would look up her speech online, Senator Nancy Schaefer. She was murdered, by the way, and that's why a lot of people are afraid to speak out, because that's what happens to them. The second thing is the modeling business. It's a way to lure young women. That's what Jeffrey Epstein did, amongst others. And he's not the only island, and he's not the only place that does that, from what I hear. But they lure young girls, 13, 14, 15. They did it in the 80s. They did it in the 90s. And then people like the owner of Elite Modeling Agency, if you look up the modeling industry, particularly in the 80s and 90s, but even now, that's how they get these young girls from all over. They lure them in, and then they go away from their families. They go away from, their loved ones. And then the next thing you know, they're in danger. In this human trafficking in the modeling industry is really bad. Just want to tell you that.
Oh, no, you're dead on. Oh, so you're absolutely dead on. You have the casting couch in Hollywood. You have these child stars and child actors who are now speaking out, saying the pedophile network there's a huge story in the Los Angeles Times, in the New York Post, about how vast the pedophile network is in Hollywood. Disney actively now trying to groom our children. You see through the programming, through the cartoons, through the shows that they're producing. So, no, the levers of cultural, social, political, educational power is in the hands of very sick, sinful, diabolical people. There's no question. And to me, you look at Drag Queen Story Hour, you look at what they're pushing now in terms of gay pornography to young kids, the books now they're pushing in schools, the sex education curriculum. I'm going to get to that either tomorrow or Friday. What Maura Healey is now pushing here in this state, you're not going to believe the new sex ed curriculum. I mean, it's beyond sick and twisted. It's beyond perverted. So, no, we have a lot of work ahead of us. Let's not kid ourselves. But we have the truth and we have justice on our side. So what are we afraid of? I gotta go to the callers. Outstanding today. Bye-bye.